Welcome to all my travelers out there. I am your host, Darren Beckett, and this is the Global Travel Podcast. For those who do not know my travel resume, I've been to 13 states, 15 countries on 5 different continents, but it is not about me. Here, we are giving you quality travel tips, insights, and recommendations on all the best destinations for ideas to enjoy your vacations. With that being said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. We are all clear for takeoff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we reach our destination, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, click the bell, and if you can do me a huge favor, if you can, leave a comment in the comment section below, type in the words, "I got my ticket," and at the end of the show, I'm going to come back, respond to see how your experience went with us, okay? So with that being said, on today's episode, we are taking a trip to the Philippines. So make sure you got your passports, your earphones, and something to snack on. We have a very special guest here with us today, but before I introduce her, let me just say this. This young lady is a well-traveled individual. She's been to 15 states, 15 countries. So if the Philippines is something you want to, a place that you want to go to, you definitely want to pay attention, take notes, and yeah, we're gonna have a fun time today. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Miss Tamara. So how you doing today, Tamara?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Another beautiful day. Can't complain. You know, I'm breathing. I'm up. I'm yeah, no complaints on my end. But yeah, I see that you travel a lot. We actually got connected via Instagram. I seen her post some nice pictures in different countries, and I was like, yeah, you need to be on this podcast. So here we are. So let's go ahead. Let's dive into it for our listeners and travelers out there. Just tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, hobbies, all that good stuff.
All right. My name is Tamara, aka Tam. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, the Denver metro area, and then spent my early adulthood in between Los Angeles, New York, and the Philippines, and currently based in Denver.
Nice. Nice. So what are some of your hobbies?
I love to travel.
Hmm. Hmm.
I lack a lot of material possessions, but have priceless memories and experiences.
Priceless. I like, and we're gonna definitely get to those places so we can jog your memory. So let's go ahead. Since you're what I guess from Denver, Colorado. So let's start in Denver. What's going on? What should we do? What do you recommend to do, see, eat, and all that good stuff?
So Denver is great and Colorado is great in general for those who like the outdoors.
Hmm.
Definitely the mountains, tons of hiking. During the summer, you could go camping. During the winter, you can go snowboarding and skiing, snowshoeing, tubing, whatever you want to do. But it's definitely for somebody who's into the outdoors. So
Hmm.
there's also marijuana tourism. So if you are 420, 420 friendly, you're more than welcome to come as well.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of hot springs. So Glenwood Hot Springs is very popular. Mount
Mm.
Princeton Hot Springs is becoming popular, and there's also less known ones that I'm interested in getting to know myself once things get to a somewhat normal again.
Right, right. So for those folks who do not know what a hot spring is, what is a hot spring?
It's essentially a natural swimming hole, and the temperature is naturally hot. And they make it so that it is human friendly and make an entire resort around it, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I've been to a hot spring in Costa Rica. They're beautiful. It's like a giant jacuzzi, but a natural mineral water type jacuzzi, so to speak. So yeah, they're pretty nice. And as far as, of course, we know snowboarding, skiing is probably some of the things to do in Denver, Colorado. And as far as the food, what are some of the things to try out, restaurants or anything like that?
So green chili is very popular in Colorado.
Mm.
So Sam's Number Three is a local business. They have a few different locations throughout the Denver metro area, but they're very popular and they're only open for breakfast and early lunch. So I think their hours are from 6 to 2. So you
Mm.
definitely have to plan.
Hmm.
Um, Also, Casa Bonita, I don't know if it's opened anymore because of COVID, but it is not known for the food, but it's known for the atmosphere. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the episode of South Park and Cartman is wanting to go to Casa Bonita. Casa Bonita is, in fact, a real restaurant. So just
Go
to
figure.
go and be a part of the experience, I'm not saying go for the food, but it is a good time and it is a good atmosphere and you will enjoy yourself.
Right, right. So, what are some of the better times to? I know everyone has their, weather is different for everyone. So, what is some of the best times to go to Colorado or Denver, Colorado?
I like I prefer summer just because you have so many things to do. One day you can go hiking, one day you can go camping, but not just camping like overnight in the wilderness, but like you can have a boat and you can have jet skis and you can be on the lake, but you're camping in the mountains. So
Okay.
I prefer summer.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I know some folks are. How hot does it get in the summer? What's the degrees we talking about?
I want to say probably the average is about 90s in the summer.
Okay, okay. It's not too hot. That's not too. Some places get to the triple digits, and that's ridiculous. So,
It can, it
uh,
can.
red. See. Now, places like Arizona get to it like on a consistent basis, but me personally, I'm talking from personal experience. I'm cool with 90. It's a little high for me, but I could do 90, not a problem. Have to visit.
R-
Um,
right.
so we're going to head to another state, but before we do, anything else you wanted to cover before we depart?
No, Colorado's really fun. You guys will
Mm-hmm.
enjoy yourself. It kind of has everything, something, a little bit of something for everybody.
Good. So if you guys are interested in nature, hiking, or skiing or snowboarding, Colorado is definitely the place to be. If you like the summer feel, go in the summertime. It's a nice time. If you like the winter time, go in December and in the winter time. So that's cool. Now let's go ahead and take it to another state. You're the pilot. I'm the co-pilot. You take us where we're going next. What state?
The next state that I enjoyed is probably Atlanta, Georgia.
Georgia. Yeah.
Georgia. However, I've only been to Atlanta, but I had a really good time. The first time I went to
hmm
Atlanta was for business, and
hmm
I stayed in, I want to say it's Alpharetta. Um, and I went for work and I really enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it so much because I have never been anywhere in the world that had the most amount of people of color. So
hmm
whether they were Black, Latino,
hmm
um, Indian, Indonesian, Filipino, with the most amount of people of color in leadership positions. So whether that was a manager position, a CEO position, a VP position, it's the only city in the world with that amount of people of color in such a diverse leadership role. And it was amazing.
I love that. Yeah, I've been to ATL myself. So, what are some of the things that you've done while you were in the ATL, so far as like what to do, or what to see, or what to experience?
So Alpharetta, Georgia is beautiful for life goals. Like I would like to own a house there. It's beautiful, the mansions. So that was awesome just to be like, hey, one day I would like to purchase property there. But
hmm
it was fun. We went out, we went to the club, we went to the Civil Rights Museum.
hmm
Um, I got to see some family friends. So it wasn't, I guess it was less of a touristy trip per se.
hmm hmm
Um, and more of I got to see the locals and what the locals do.
I like that. Any food out there that stood out to you that was good?
Um, I don't remember the name of the restaurant, but
That's fine.
I didn't have any bad food while I was there.
You won't be disappointed. You go to ATL, good old food, Southern food, different cuisines out there, and it's a great. And as far as the nightlife, you say you went to a club? How's the nightlife out there?
Oh, it was fun. We had a good time that night, and Ashanti happened to be in town and came to the club that night, and she performed.
Oh, kill them, kill them.
Yes.
So that's what's up. Yeah, ATL is very it's one of the popular states or cities in Georgia. So definitely try out the ATL. It's more of a city then you have your outskirts and your places where you go where it's more nature and whatnot. But ATL is more of the city life. So those folks who are
Mhm.
interested in that, ATL may be a place for you. So cool. So before we head out to another state, anything else that you would like to cover before we head on out?
No, Atlanta's fun. I recommend I go back.
Put it on your list, man. Your places to go, put it on your list. If it's on the bottom, move it on up. So okay, cool. So we hit Colorado, we hit Atlanta, Georgia. What other state would you like to take us to?
Um, I would probably say I want to go with the less popular ones first.
Let's do
Um,
that.
Utah is Utah is beautiful, and
Mm,
I haven't been to Utah for vacation per se,
hmm.
but
Hmm.
my family has lived in Colorado for going on 25 years, so we've driven back and forth between, and Utah is just beautiful. Like
Hmm.
if I could have the time to like really go and explore, I would. The is it Zion National Park?
Hmm.
Is gorgeous. Like I've been through them, but I've never actually got to like go hiking and explore, but just it's breathtaking. So Utah,
Hmm.
just the landscape, the environment, it's definitely worth it. Um, but ironically, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and Arizona, they all come together in one place and they call it the Four Corners. And it's actually a tourist spot in all four states that you can go, and you're technically in four places at once.
Oh, wow. It's called the Four Corners, huh?
Yeah, it's called the Four
Uh,
Corners.
I like
So,
that. I like that. They say you can't be in two places at one time, but you could be in four.
yeah, you can
Uh,
put one arm, one in each place.
Hey, that's cool right there. That's a little fun fact for some folks right there. That's actually kind of cool. Okay, anything else in Utah? I know we might just pass on through, but anything before we head on out?
No, Utah's fun. I don't know if it's fun, but it's beautiful. Check it out. And then after Utah, Vegas. I love Vegas. I love to go to Vegas to party. Okay, if I'm going to go to Vegas, I don't go to gamble. I don't know what the gambling is like, but Vegas is where, like, if I'm guaranteed looking for a good time and I want to go out with my girls or I want to go out with a group of people, I'm going to Vegas.
Hmm.
So, um, for those, definitely wait. I don't recommend Vegas until you're 21. I know a lot of kids nowadays want to take that gap year. I would skip Vegas until you're 21.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. You don't want to go before 21. It's not even worth it.
It's not
Um,
worth it.
any particular clubs that you like when you go to Vegas that you like to hit up?
Dre's is always a good time. Dre's is like one of the very few hip hop clubs in
Hmm.
Vegas.
Hmm.
Um, One Oak is also pretty good for hip hop. Everything else is more like top 40 EDC techno.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes some like the bigger clubs have different rooms and so forth, but like if you're looking for something just hip hop, Dre's and One Oak are
Hmm.
usually the places to go.
Y'all heard that. If you're looking for hip hop music, want to turn up, go to the club in Vegas, Dre's, and what's the other one?
One Oak.
One Oak. So those are the two clubs you need to hit if you do like that hip hop music. And then I know a lot of folks know about the Strip already. And that's kind of like a lot of very popular. Anything else that you can touch on in Vegas that folks may not know about or is not as popular as the Strip?
Fremont Street. Fremont Street is old Vegas. So what
Mm,
was Vegas before the strip came along?
mm,
Fremont Street isn't, for a lack of a better word, as glamorous as the strip, but
mhm.
which is also in some ways nicer. You could go, you don't need like, I feel like on the strip, you're there to dress to impress, you're here to kill it. Whereas Fremont Street is a lot more casual, a lot more laid back.
Mhm.
So, but on Fremont Street, you can go zip lining.
Mm.
They have all kinds of street performers on Fremont Street. So, like I said, it's like it. I don't want to say ghetto. It's just not as flashy as the strip.
Right, right. So for those folks who are in Vegas and want to do something a little different, hit Fremont Street. Do something a little different than what the normal folks do in Vegas. So definitely hit that up. And then let's talk about one more state before we go international. What last state would you like to talk about before we go across the pond?
Um, I don't want to do a popular one, so give me a second.
Yeah.
It has to be in the U.S.
Yeah,
Like you want to.
one
Okay.
more, one more.
One more. Hold on, let me think. I've been to so many. I'm trying to think. I'm sorry.
No, no, take it. We can cut and edit this, so it ain't no big deal.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hold
yeah,
on.
you're good.
Where did I go last year? Detroit. I didn't like that. Okay, I'm gonna go with Florida. Okay.
But let's go.
But yeah, I'm gonna go with Florida. I've been to
Hmm.
Fort Lauderdale and Miami, and I like
Hmm.
both of them very much. Fort Lauderdale is definitely Fort Lauderdale is more of the locals again. So I went on a business trip. And then from Fort Lauderdale, I went down to Miami, and it's only like a 40-minute drive. Fort Lauderdale is though more like where I would take my family, or I would take
Hmm.
something more low key, more laid back, and so forth. That was really nice though. It's beautiful. And then Miami's just their South Beach. It's flashy. It's fun.
Hmm.
There's people from all over the world. The food is amazing. So I really and the diversity in Florida is also great too.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I enjoyed Florida, even though you hear a lot of weird things happening down
You're right.
there.
I've heard some stories. I've heard some stories. So, what about the food though? I know there's a huge Cuban population out there. What are some like some good food that you recommend folks to try?
So it's gonna sound cliche, but ropa vieja is great. It is beef and rice with some type of red sauce.
Hmm.
I've had it in Cuba and I've had it in Miami, and it was the same. So I can't say
Mm.
like, oh, this was the American version of ropa vieja. No, it was authentic Cuban food. So the Cuban food down there is legit. So
Okay.
um, and my
Okay.
rule of thumb, the smaller and the more hole in the wall it is, the better it's probably going to taste.
Yeah, yeah. And I like to recommend my travelers and listeners out there, don't always go to the chain restaurants, the main restaurants. Try the mom and pop local hole in the walls or whatever you want to call it, but the unknowns. And it's probably better than the chain restaurants, to be quite honest with you. I don't know. I personally like local places, mom and pop stores and whatnot. So definitely try that out when you go traveling and whatnot. So anything else before we head international?
um, the United States is fun, but the United States is also expensive. So you do definitely have to plan in advance,
Mm-hmm.
take into consideration, especially like, for example, in Atlanta, Alpharetta to downtown Atlanta is not close. So
Mhm,
even though I got a really great deal on my Airbnb and it was beautiful, if I would have had to commute from Alpharetta to downtown, I would have spent more in Ubers going back and forth versus just getting a hotel closer to where I wanted to be.
mhm.
So take it, look into, just the little things like that will save you money long term to do things you really want to do. Because again, the United States is very
Yeah, yeah, definitely, good whole America. Yeah, it's
expensive.
a pretty penny to live here, especially depending on what state you are in too. California,
Mhm.
New York is one of the more expensive places to be, and yeah, we definitely pay for it. So cool. So the United States was fun. Let's go ahead and head on international. So we got a little ways till we get to Philippines. So what countries are we stopping by first before we get to the Philippines?
So I'll just kind of go in the order of how it happened.
Hmm.
I went to the University of Denver, and my junior year, um, the university, excuse me, the University of Denver, aka DU, offers a study abroad program. So once
Mm.
you're accepted into the university, you can choose up to, at the time, it was 36 countries to go to without having to pay for the additional fee to go abroad. It was already
Nice.
included.
Nice.
So I decided to go to Spain. I studied abroad in Spain, spring quarter of 2008.
Mm.
And while I was in Spain, I was able to go to Paris, Rome, Brussels, and Amsterdam.
Mm.
So, as well as a bunch of different cities within Spain itself.
So what
So,
cities
that
did you hit in Spain?
in Spain, I went to Madrid,
Hmm.
Toledo, Salamanca, Valladolid, San Sebastian, um, and I studied in Santander.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
So what are some of the things that you would recommend to do in those places? Some of the things to do, see, all that.
Um, Santander, Spain, Santander,
Mhm.
is a town on the northern coast, and it is beautiful.
Mhm.
It was destroyed. Most of the city was destroyed in a fire in the 1940s, so it's a pretty new city.
Mm.
Very the
Mm.
architecture is beautiful. The ocean is clear water as if you were in Hawaii. It's not a
Cool.
big touristy town,
Mhm.
so you'll see a lot of locals. I don't speak Spanish fluently, but entiendo todo because
Mhm.
of the time that I spent, because it's not as touristy. So you are forced to speak Spanish.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
So I recommend Santander. And then about 3 hours to the east of Santander is San Sebastian. San Sebastian is more well known,
Mhm.
but again, beautiful, beautiful coastal city. That one is a lot closer to France,
Mhm.
so they get more French tourists over there.
Mm.
But absolutely beautiful. I Those were my two favorite cities in Spain.
Nice. And you don't really hear about those two cities when you talk about Spain too much. A lot of folks they focus on Barcelona, the Madrid,
Hmm.
southern part of Spain or what Sevilla. So yeah, so that area you said Santander, is that the name of it?
Yeah, Santander.
Santander. Okay, that's like northern Spain.
Yeah, it's on the northern coast. It's about a 6 hour bus ride from Madrid.
Okay, okay, cool. So what are some of the foods that you recommend for folks to travel to Spain?
Tapas. Tapas are great.
Uh-huh.
The Spanish tortilla. The Spanish
Mhm.
tortilla is. I learned how to make it because I enjoyed it that much.
Nice.
um, and they also have really good wine in Spain.
You must have read my mind. Are you more of I was about to get to like, what about the vino? Are you more of a red wine or a white wine?
um, I like both. I prefer like I don't like red wine. Well, either one. I prefer something that's not too sweet but not too tart.
Mhm,
So I
mhm.
like it right there in the middle, but I'll drink it both warm and I'll drink it cold.
I've learned. Okay, so where do they do this warm wine at? I've heard about this. Like it's supposed to be warm wine. Is that in Spain? Is that where they do it?
I've had warm wine a few places.
Really? I never
Yeah.
had it. I want to try it. I don't know what's. I'm gonna try it. I guess hot coffee, hot wine, cold wine. All right, cool. I'm gonna try it one of these days. It's one of those things on my bucket list, I guess. All right, cool. So before we switch off to another country, anything else about Spain that you would like to mention before we head on out?
Um, no, the people were great.
Mm,
They were very humble, hospitable. I stayed
mhm.
with the host family, so that was awesome. So
Yeah.
I had a really good time. I haven't been back, unfortunately. I haven't been back to Europe since
Mhm,
I've been,
mhm.
but I would like to eventually go back.
Right. And for those folks who are in college right now, I highly recommend studying abroad. That is a great way
Yes.
to get your feet wet. And there's different options, programs you can do. You can do a short program, I believe, like a week long during spring break or 2 weeks long. You can also do semester long. I prefer semester just because you can really dive deep into the culture and immerse yourself, learn the language. But if that's too long for you for your first trip, then do the 2 week or 1 week trip. That's something to do. So definitely study abroad. And if you can, I recommend. Well, there's two ways you can go. You can either stay with the host family, which is I recommend that. I did that in Chile, where you stay with a native family who speaks the native tongue and the language, and you just live with them as if you're a part of the family, and they teach you all the the customs, the cultures, the food. That's probably the best way to know a country. Another way, I actually had the blessing and the opportunity to do it twice. So I stayed abroad in Puerto Rico, not abroad, so it's a U.S. territory, but
But abroad.
but abroad, yeah, yeah, yeah. So in Puerto Rico, I stayed with the other international. No, yeah, it was some international students, but I stayed in the dorm right with the other local students in Puerto Rico, and they speak both languages, English and Spanish. So it was actually I didn't I didn't like that because they were too good at English, so it made it real easy for me to speak English. I'm like, yo, I'm trying to practice my Spanish, but they speak two languages there in Puerto Rico. So either way, whether you stay with a host family or whether you stay in the dorms with the other local students, either way, it's a win-win situation. So
Right.
cool. Spain is beautiful. We know about Spain. Get some vino. Travel up north, travel outside of the popular places like Barcelona and Madrid. And now we're done with Spain. Now, what other countries? Where we going next?
Um, After Spain, I'm gonna go with Thailand. Okay.
Let's go.
Thailand, very, very cliche. I know it's become very, very cliche. I love Thailand. I've been to
Hmm.
Thailand 3 times in the last 4 years.
Oh, you do love Thailand. Yeah. What
I love
parts? What
Thailand.
parts? Bangkok,
Um,
Phi Island. What
so
parts?
I've been to Bangkok,
Uh-huh.
and been to Phuket, Phi
Hmm.
Islands,
Hmm.
Koh Tao.
Hmm.
Um, so the first time I went, we actually got it on Groupon. So don't sleep on Groupon.
Don't knock. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that.
Don't sleep on Groupon. So me and a girlfriend of mine found a trip for 11 days. It was $1,200 round trip, flight,
Mm.
hotel, everything included. So we were like, that breaks down to $100 a day. Like, what are we waiting for? Um, Landed in Bangkok. Was in Bangkok for about 4 days. Maybe, yeah, about 3 or 4 days. Stayed at a gorgeous hotel somewhere in Bangkok. Uh, Big city. Went to their local market. Went to the floating market. um, we did some things that people may not agree with, and we went and pet the tigers and we rode the elephants. Okay. I have unfortunately participated in some not so great tourism. At the time, I was really ignorant to it. I do my best not to, but sometimes I'm going to live my life regardless of what anybody has to say, but I do my best to not engage in some of those things. But we did that in Bangkok, and then we ended up flying to Phuket. Phuket, beautiful, gorgeous, gorgeous. Phuket was destroyed in the 2004 tsunami,
Mm.
so
Wow.
it's been completely rebuilt. It's
Hmm.
beautiful though; they did great. Um, and then that trip, we also went to the Phi Islands. So Phi Islands is beautiful, worth it. We didn't stay overnight. We only did the day trip. I would recommend staying the night. If I could stay the night, I will probably stay the night.
Hmm.
um, the second time I went at it was the beginning of low season, and it was great because it wasn't so packed. And that time I went to Phuket, and then I met a friend in Koh Tao. Um, Koh Tao is not as touristy as Phuket. I'm not going to lie, Phuket is very westernized.
Hmm.
And when I mean westernized, I'm talking about there's McDonald's, Starbucks, KFC, Burger King, all of that, like
Yeah.
in walking distance from you. So
Hmm.
Phuket is it's catered to Westerners.
Hmm.
So if you're looking for something that's catered to Westerners and you're looking for more of that Western luxury that you're used to, you'll love Phuket. Whereas
Hmm.
Kotel provides that, it's just not on the same level as Phuket.
Hmm.
So to
Hmm.
me, Kotel it's more of an authentic Thailand experience versus Phuket or the Phi Islands because their economy is based on that tourism.
Right, right, exactly. Like a lot of countries are based on tourism. That's how they make their money. That's how they survive. But there was
Mhm.
a couple things I wanted to touch on in Thailand that you mentioned. One was the floating market. For those who are not aware of what the floating market is in Thailand, I've been to Bangkok. I've been a part of the floating market. Definitely a different experience. You have to try it. In the floating market, you are like in a canoe or a boat or like a little small boat or what have you, and it's just like a market. Like you just it's a gang of boats in like a channel or a canal, and you just stopping at different little spots to buy whatever little trinkets or souvenirs or gifts of the land of Thailand. So it's definitely, or you can even get off, get some food real quick, hop back on. But yeah, it's like a little boat. You have somebody who's I guess got like a little motor or whatever, and just kind of like motoring you around and just take you to different little gift shops, little markets to buy some things. So the floating market is definitely something you need to try out when you go to Thailand. Another thing that you mentioned, which I'm guilty of too, I even got some backlash when I posted the pictures. So for those folks who are not aware, I wasn't aware at the time. I didn't know until after I posted some pictures up and I got some feedback. So in Thailand, unfortunately, when you go to these elephant shows and tiger shows and zoos and all these type of stuff, you see people petting tigers and petting elephants and riding elephants and all that type of stuff. Now, those animals, just to keep, they're tortured, they're tortured or that's what I've learned. Just to keep it straightforward with you, so it's not the most ideal thing to do for tourism if you can avoid it. It's a sad situation out there. That's how they live, that's kind of like part of their money and how they live, so that just is what it is. But if you can avoid riding on elephants, riding and petting tigers and all that, and lions and whatever the case may be, try to avoid it if you care about that type of stuff. And then try to do something like, if you're interested, go to like an elephant sanctuary and whatnot, where they rescue elephants who have been captured and put on display for show and whatnot. So that's actually really key when you go to Thailand. Make sure you keep that in mind. Some folks are not going to appreciate that too much.
And the elephant sanctuaries are so much better than riding the elephants. We
Mhm.
got to make the elephants food. We got to feed them their
Mhm.
food. We got to bathe them. It was just a so much doper experience at the sanctuary versus just riding them. So I would
Yeah.
definitely recommend. And there's elephant sanctuaries all over Thailand.
Right, right. So yeah, when you're in Thailand, definitely try it out. So we hit Spain, we hit Thailand for a little bit. Now it looks like we are finally, since we're in the Asian continent area, it looks like we have finally arrived in the Philippines. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We about to dive deep into the Philippines. We're off the
Deep.
plane, we stretching our legs, and we ready to go hit the ground running. So Tamara, what do you recommend we do first?
Um, So I lived in the Philippines for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Palawan. More specifically, I lived in Coron Town,
Mm-hmm.
on the island of Busuanga. Um, Palawan was rated this year's most beautiful island in the world by, I think, Travel and Leisure. Is it
Mm.
one of the National Geographic, Travel and Leisure? So one of
Yeah.
them, but
Uh-huh.
it is recently won the most beautiful island in the world, and it's not an overstatement. It is
Mm.
legit one of the most beautiful places I've been to. It's heaven on earth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I see
the
the pictures.
water. Yes, the water is so clear. I get people ask me all the time, "Is that in a pool?" And I'm like, "No, that's the ocean."
What's the temperature of the water? Is it warm? I'm
It's
assuming it's
warm.
warm or luke.
It's
Oh, those.
it's super warm. It's warmer than sometimes like the shower water that comes out of the shower head.
Oh, wow. And what is this? One more time. What's the name of it? The most beautiful island in the world. What's that name?
The island is called Palawan, but it's also the name of the province of the Philippines.
Okay, okay. So if y'all want to go see the most beautiful island in the world, Philippines is definitely a place you need to go, especially if you're a tropical type of person. And then I'm assuming they're probably known for seafood or fish, or what is there to eat when you're in the Philippines?
A lot of seafood. The Philippines is composed of over 7,000 islands, so it's a lot of seafood.
Oh.
Believe it or not, they eat a lot of pork. They don't eat a lot
Oh.
of beef. Cow is very expensive to maintain in that type of environment, so they don't eat a lot of beef, and they eat a lot of chicken.
Yeah, that's I can do the chicken. I can do the fish, the seafood, the chicken. I'm good with that. So that worked for me. Okay, cool. So what are some of the things like, okay, we got the island, most beautiful island. What are some of the other, even if it's touristy, what are some of the things that you recommend us do, whether it's touristy or local?
Um, I so in Cebu, in the Cebu area of the Philippines, they call it canyoneering, and the
Hmm.
best way I can describe it, it's white water rafting minus the raft. So your body, it's literally you. They strap a life vest on you and a helmet, and you hike up the canyon, and then to get back
Uh-huh.
down the canyon, you have to jump and you have to swim and you have to go through the river to get back down the canyon, and it was the best $30 I've spent in my life.
Wow.
uh,
That sounds like
it
you have to be like do you have to be like a strong swimmer or something? Or in pretty in shape or something? Sound like a little physical.
definitely want to be in shape, because it takes about 3 hours, and you do by the time you get to the bottom, you're tired.
Ooh,
You
yeah.
have to go with the tour guide. So the tour guide tells you
Mhm.
where to jump, and it's literally
Mhm.
like you're jumping from here. Some of the cliffs are like up to I think one of the cliffs is like 10 meters and that's like 30 feet or something crazy. Um
Mm-hmm.
so it you definitely can't be scared because there's no, once you get up there, there's no other way down. Like you have to go down. um, but
Uh,
it's like it's nature. Like you're going through nature, and then you have like the rocks in the water make natural rock slides, and you're going down the slides, and it was great. I really enjoy canyoneering.
nice. I like the
So
sound of that. And now, are there any waterfall? I don't know why waterfalls came to my mind, but are there any waterfalls or something like that?
canyoneering actually will take you to Calwasan Falls, which is one of the
Mm-hmm.
most popular waterfalls in the Philippines. So
Mm-hmm.
Calwasan Falls, very popular. Canyoneering will take you to that particular waterfall at the end. But
Mm-hmm.
there's waterfalls all over the Philippines. The ones that I know that I've been to personally and on the island are Gucci Falls and oh, for the life of me, I can't think of the other one right now. But yeah, there's tons everywhere, everywhere. And
Good.
some islands are known more for their waterfalls versus their beaches, and then some islands are known for their beaches and not their waterfalls.
That makes sense. Now, is it easy to get to the other islands? Do you just take a quick ferry, or is it long
It
way, or how do you navigate through the islands?
So my suggestion is like I wouldn't go from like I would plan it almost in like a circle to do it
Okay.
because otherwise you're going to be all over the map and
Mm,
you don't like so like if I'm over here in Quran and I want to go to Cebu but then I want to go to Siquijor like I wouldn't you can't really take a ferry like that so you'd have to fly to
mhm.
one but whereas certain islands are close enough that you could take the ferry
How long is that ferry
so
ride about?
it depends so from Manila to get to my island is now I believe it's an 18-hour ferry ride but it's
Oh,
also 20
18.
but it's also only 20 US dollars. Whereas you can take a 45-minute flight, but it's 100 US dollars one way.
Pick your poison.
Mm.
At least with the
Right.
yeah, at least with the ferry, you get to enjoy the water and all that good stuff, the scenery. I always like going the slow route, the scenic route, so that's always fun for me. Now, you lived out there, so what is the weather like? When is the best time to go to the Philippines when it's comfortable?
Uh, the Philippines is always hot. Even in the rainy season, it's hot.
Oh, okay.
So it is extremely humid out
Mm.
there. Like I used to sweat from existing. Okay, like, and I'm not overreacting. Like I promise you. My one of my girlfriends came to visit, and she's like, "I'm sweating, and all I'm doing is sitting here." She's like, "I get what you mean. You sweat from existing." And I was like, "I told you." She's like,
Oh,
"I just didn't know it was possible."
wow,
um, so
wow.
it's always humid. It's always
Hmm.
humid. Sometimes it's a little bit cooler, but that to me it doesn't matter if it's 80%, 90% humidity outside. So
Hey, yeah.
high season is usually from about November until about March, April.
Hmm.
April, come the end of April, it's gotten a lot more quiet.
Hmm.
Not to say it's not as touristy, but oh man, like New Year's and Christmas was ridiculous 2 years
Mm,
ago. Like, it was so packed.
I
So
bet.
that's the busy season.
Yeah.
But the Philippines is also really cheap, especially for Westerners.
Hmm.
So the US dollar when I lived there averaged about one US dollar was about 50 Philippine pesos.
Mm.
So and your average meal at the time was 120 pesos. So I'm paying two less than 250 per meal. So
Mhm,
but
mhm. I
uh
like that.
ironically on the island that I lived on, at the time there was nothing American, there was nothing Western on the island. So there was no McDonald's, Starbucks, Burger
Mhm,
King, nothing. Um, they recently put a McDonald's. I think the McDonald's has been open for maybe about a year now. Um, a
mhm,
lot of locals weren't happy about it because they
mm,
call it the beginning of the end. On the island, like there's no Hilton, there's no Best Western, there's not a Holiday Inn, there's nothing of that commercialization didn't exist on the island. And
mhm.
now that the McDonald's is there, it means it's the beginning of the end. That Westernization and Americanization is coming. So it's a
Mhm.
good
Yeah.
thing. It's a good thing, and then at the same time, it's a bad thing.
Right, right. So yeah, I like to try to do the local things. Sometimes you do those commercial things and tourist things, and it's not like no right or wrong answer or nothing like that. But how do you get around in the Philippines? Is it Ubers? Is it taxis, motorcycles, or scooters?
In Manila, you're probably going to do, they call it Grab, which is their version of Uber. Um, they don't have Uber out there, so you have to download Grab. It's their version
Okay.
of Uber though. So you're going to do that in the bigger cities. In the smaller cities and in the villages and so forth, you will probably rent a bike. And if you're not going to rent a
Mm,
bike, you're probably going to be on a trike, which
mhm.
is similar to a tuk-tuk. So,
Mm. Yeah.
um, so yeah, it just all depends. But you're definitely most of the time going to be learn how to ride a motorbike.
Right, right, right. So as you guys just heard, they do not have Uber. You have to download something called Grab, right?
Grab.
So you want to download Grab. That's your Uber when you're in the Philippines. So definitely want to do that when you want to get around. Or you rent a bike, man. Be healthy, get some exercise in, rent a bike. That's always cool, and a trike as well is to, get around and whatnot. So cool, cool, cool. Now, far as were there anything that you disliked about the Philippines?
Um, this is going to sound terrible, but this is just because I grew up in America. The
Mhm.
power on the island that I lived on wasn't always the most reliable, and the Wi-Fi on the island is terrible. So that's what I. But again, in like Manila, the big city, and Cebu, another big city, that's not a that's not an issue. So I lived on a
Mhm.
very, for a lack of a better word, I lived on a really underdeveloped island. So,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
that's like I lived the true Philippine experience though, versus being in Manila. Manila, I would have had a more American type of lifestyle out there versus the
Mhm.
small Quran town. My livelihood is based on tourism. Um, I have a lot of Philippine, like local friends. I don't think I
Mhm.
would have gotten that type of experience living in Manila.
Right, right. So yeah, definitely get away from the big city if you can, Manila, Cebu. But if you do get away, understand that you may not have the greatest Wi-Fi. You probably can't update your Instagram stories. You probably can't post on Facebook as often as you like, show out your pictures. So you might have to wait till you hit a hotspot or something or get some Wi-Fi. But it's all good, man. Live in the moment. We don't always need Wi-Fi, but good old Americans, yes, we do, right? Yeah, it's just one of those things. So for Americans, do we need a not a passport? Do we need a visa or vaccinations or anything to go to the Philippines?
Technically, you don't need a visa. That might change after COVID, though. Who knows? Um,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
at the time, you didn't need any vaccines, but I forgot what vaccine I got the first time I went to just Asia in general. And it wasn't mandatory, it was just something I did for myself. And I got it over the counter at Walgreens, and I think it was $100. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, so I did that, and
Yeah.
that was a while ago. And that was just, again, it wasn't required. It was just for my own comfort. Um, and then what else? But there's so many places to travel to in the Philippines. Um, uh, Boracay is probably more of one of the more developed islands, but the tropical clear water, so forth, and all of that. You're not
Mm-hmm.
going to have the internet problems and the power problems like they do in Quran, just because it's specifically geared again towards those Westerners looking for that Western luxury. So, but it's
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to Boracay. I cannot wait to go back and go. So
Nice.
so
Yeah, I
beautiful. It's
like
so
that.
beautiful.
Yeah.
El Nido is also beautiful. El Nido is a town in Palawan.
Mm-hmm.
It is a 4-hour ferry ride from Coron to El Nido.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, you can go island hopping in El Nido. You can go island hopping in Coron. In Coron town municipality alone, there's 50 islands.
Wow.
So yeah, so even if you just get to go to a handful of them, they're some of the most beautiful in the world.
Right. So what about the language? what are, I know Americans, we only speak English, unfortunately. Um, so how is it navigating in the Philippines? Do they speak English, or what's their native tongue, or how does that work on language basis?
They in the bigger cities, most people speak English, and then
Mhm.
as you get to the smaller and smaller, more remote villages, they speak less and less English and more Tagalog. But they have different dialects of Tagalog. So,
Mhm.
but Tagalog is also very similar to Spanish. So there's a lot of words in Tagalog that have the same meaning in Spanish. So, for example, sala, window, um, uh, some of the numbers, there's like, it's very similar. So even though I don't speak Spanish
Mhm.
fluently, I understand enough Spanish that when I heard them, I can put two and two together.
Right, right. Now, do you know any words from in Tagalog?
Yes, but no, none of the good ones.
We always seem to learn the bad words first. That's just, and I don't blame that on the person. I blame that on the person teaching you. That's who I blame it on. Because yeah, everyone want to teach the bad words, and for whatever reason, we remember the bad words. Why do we remember the bad
Yeah.
words easier than the good stuff? So that's kind of funny. Now, when it comes to shopping, is it a big shopping scene out? Americans. Some of us like to shop till we drop. So is it like a shopping scene
Um,
out there in the Philippines?
yeah, in Manila, absolutely. They have malls
Mhm.
everywhere. Absolutely. Yes, 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 yes.
Mm.
Whatever you're looking for, you can get. Depends what part of the Philippines you're into. So, like for example, Makati in Manila, which is like a suburb, that's more. That's going to be like more bougie area for them. So that's more like you're more likely to find like Gucci and Prada over there versus like somewhere else. So
Right. Okay.
Makati and BGC are like the bougie areas, but that's
Hmm.
where most Westerners go because a five-star hotel is, I think, maybe $100 for the night. Whereas,
Hmm.
a five-star hotel in the United States isn't going to run us $100.
Mm-mm.
So
Yeah.
in Asia in general, though, you Westerners, Americans, like you can ball out. You can afford to go out and you can afford to do that because you you're not for 80 bucks, $100 a night, you could stay at a five-star hotel.
Hmm.
So if that's what you want, you can do it and not have like and still have money to go out and not just stay in your hotel room all day.
Got you. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. A lot of times when Westerners and folks from America, we go to different countries, a lot of times it's a lot cheaper for us, So keep that in mind. Philippines is one of those places. So yeah, definitely. And now when it comes to, let me see here, like far as the culture, what differences or even similarities do you see in their culture versus our Westerner cultures?
Um so for me, I think the biggest surprise for me is how similar Philippine culture is to Latino culture. So they
Hmm.
are very similar. And anywhere from like the food to the language to family, to religion. They're
Hmm.
very Catholic, they're very family oriented. They have the same type of foods, menudo, adobo. Um, so it was very, I guess, shocking. And not even, and I can't call it a culture shock because I wasn't like, oh my God, I lived there for a year and I felt like I was at
Yeah.
home.
Nice.
So for me, it was very similar. To me, it was more like this, just being how so surprised, like, yeah, I'm American, but I'm Mexican American. So
Mhm,
I still have those, like, we eat beans, rice, tacos,
mhm,
tortas, asada.
mhm.
We eat all of that. So it was very shocking to see how similar their culture was to Latino culture. I can't even say necessarily American culture, but that similar to Latino culture was amazing.
Mhm. I like that. I like the Latin culture too myself. That's pretty cool. Now, let me see here. Now, why did you, out of all the 195 countries you could have lived in, why did you choose the Philippines?
It's actually a funny story.
Story
I have
time.
yeah, so I had broken up with my ex-boyfriend and I was devastated. I was extremely heartbroken. And I have a good friend who's Filipino American
Mhm,
and he had moved back to the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
He was born in Quran, but had moved back to Quran and opened a guest house there. So he was like, "Come on." He's like, "You'll get over it. It's beautiful over here. By the time you leave, you'll be over him." I was like, "All right, let's go." So I was
Uh-huh.
only supposed to go for 2 weeks. I ended up staying for 7. I
Oh.
ended up staying for 7 weeks, and in that 7 weeks, I was in a really good place financially,
Mm-hmm.
and I was I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was really hurt. I was really really heartbroken.
Right.
So he was like, "Buy a boat, and we'll use your boat, and we'll use my clientele at the guest house to fill your boat with and go on island hopping tours." So I bought a
Mhm.
boat.
Nice, nice. Yeah.
So I bought a boat. I came back to the US for 2 months, got everything in order, sold a lot of my things, made some money. And I came back, and from September of 2018 until May of 2019, I rented my boat for private island hopping tours in Quran.
That's smart. That is smart. See, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So if you know the right people, they can definitely add value to your life. So it's good to know some folks. And then let me see here. There was something else I wanted to ask you. Let me see. Oh, is there anything that you would do differently? Like knowing what you know now, would you do anything differently back in the Philippines?
Um, I what would I do differently? For me living there,
Hmm.
um, I I will go back to live there, and I will go back to live on the island. But I need a remote position, a full-time remote position.
Uh-huh.
That for me, that's my personal goal, because if I could make an American salary, like a good American salary, and live there for 5 years, I could come home with $100,000 in the bank, pay off my student loans, and do whatever I wanted with that $100,000.
Yeah,
So
that's a
whether that
good
was
plan.
but the catch is, the reason one I haven't done it is because the power and internet is unreliable on the island. So
Hmm.
for me to realistically live back in the Philippines and like maintain that goal, I would have to live in Manila, and I don't really want to live in Manila.
I, I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. Stay, I mean, it's
Mhm.
westernized. So you want to go to a different country, live in a different country, and feel like you're in a different country. So that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Now, how long? I don't know if do you remember the airline that you flew when you went to Philippines by chance?
So Philippine Airlines is the only airline that has a direct flight from the US.
Mm.
Um, everywhere, all the other airlines have a layover somewhere in Asia,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, you're going
Mm-hmm.
to have some type of layover.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I flew out there, I think it was Hong Kong Airlines,
Mm-hmm.
and I bought a one-way ticket. And at the time, the one-way ticket was 280.
Ooh, kill 'em, kill 'em.
Yeah.
See, that's some good numbers right there.
Mhm.
I like that. Now, how long was that flight about, more or less?
Thir Ooh, was it 13 hours? I think it's 13 hours to Hong Kong. And then we
Mm-hmm.
had a 2 or 3 hour layover, and I think a 2 hour flight from Hong
Mm-hmm.
Kong to Manila. But it's funny because as you're going to Hong Kong, you pass over Manila.
You know what? I've done some crazy. I've had flight where I had passed my country to do a layover to come back. So it was kind of weird. I guess it was cheaper at the time, so that's probably why it happened. Yeah, sometimes these flight schedules are a little backwards. I guess maybe because it's cheaper, you can fly to another country that passed the country that you're going to, and just to
Mhm.
come back to it, just because it's cheaper. But I mean, hey, if you're balling on a budget, then why not? So
Um, it took me 48 hours to get home from the Philippines and 4 flights.
and 4 flights?
I
Goodness.
took a flight from the island to Clark, and
Mm-hmm.
Clark is about 2 or 3 hours north of Manila.
Mm-hmm.
And then from Clark, I took the 3 hour bus ride to Manila.
Wow.
From Manila to Shenzhen, I had a 12-hour layover in Shenzhen, from Shenzhen to Chongqing, and
Wow.
then in Chongqing for 6 hours, and then from Chongqing to LA. It took
That's
me
a
48 hours, and my ticket was $300.
good Lord have mercy. That was a trip for real, for real. So out of curiosity, how is the nightlife in the Philippines? Is there a nightlife? And what it's like if it is?
In Manila, I'm not too sure.
Mm-hmm.
In Quran, absolutely. There's a few bars in town. There's actually a new club in town that I've been to a couple of times where it was like an actual club. The rest
Mm-hmm.
of them are bars.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
their Caritas is the reggae bar. Reggae is really big out there. So
Mm.
yeah, reggae is really big out there. So they had a local band that did a lot of covers and stuff like that. But it was just a good time. I never been a regular anywhere in my life and became a regular at Caritas.
Nice, nice. Definitely. That's what's up, man. That sounds fun. So we will unfortunately have to start packing our bags and thinking about getting on this flight back home. But I'm sure our listeners, our travelers out there got some good travel news about Philippines and some other states and other countries as well. So as we actually before we head back, any other last things that you want to talk about the Philippines before we get on this flight back home?
Put it on your bucket list. Make it a
Mm,
must to go.
mm,
You will not regret it. You will not
mhm,
regret it. As I love Thailand, but I lived in the Philippines, so that
mhm.
says a lot.
It does. It does. It does.
All
So
right.
if you got
It's
go
it's beautiful. It's worth the travel time.
ahead.
Solo, if you got to solo
Mhm,
travel. But you know
mhm,
what? If you solo travel, especially my tips for the ladies,
mhm,
stay at a hostel. It's a
mhm,
very easy way to meet other solo travelers, and a lot of women travel solo. And it's a great way. It's the easiest way to meet people. If I go with a girlfriend, we'll probably stay at an Airbnb, but if
mhm.
I'm going by myself, I'm definitely staying in a hostel.
Perfect sense. So, ladies, solo travelers, everybody out there, yeah, you might want to hit a hostel if you come out here by yourself or to the Philippines by yourself. So definitely do that. And then now, ladies and gentlemen, looks like we have to catch this flight back home. Hopefully, you guys got a lot of good value information on Philippines. Put it on your bucket list if it's not already, and then if it is on your bucket list, move it on up. So, all right, we have to hit this flight back home. But as we head back, we do have one last segment before we get to our home airport, and it is called the lightning round. And I'm going to ask you a list of questions. You have to answer them as quickly as possible. So it's quick, 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 sense of urgency.
Uh,
And you can only answer in one word answers. So no sentences, no backstories, or anything like that. We keep it short and sweet. Cool?
okay, sounds
Let's
good.
get it. So, question number one: what is your favorite airline?
Delta,
What is your favorite hotel or hostel?
Hop Hostel in Quran.
What is your favorite cruise line?
Never been.
What is your favorite state?
California,
What is your favorite country?
Philippines,
What is your favorite hotel or hostel booking site?
Hostel World.
That's a good one. What is your favorite flight booking site?
Kiwi.com.
What is one thing that Tamara has to bring on all of her trips?
My phone.
Where do you want to go next?
Uh, Brazil,
Ooh, good one. What other state would you live in?
Florida,
What other country other than the Philippines and the United States would you live in?
Mexico.
Last question. What is your favorite travel podcast?
The Global Travel Podcast.
Good answer. Good answer. Good answer. That was good. I like that. I like that. I like that a lot. So, Tamara, much appreciated. Thank you, thank you, thank you for showing us love. Taking some time out your busy schedule to drop us some Philippine knowledge and some other countries and states. So much appreciated. And then to all my listeners out there, I will drop her Instagram or whatever she wants me to drop down there so you guys can follow her. If you got some more questions, pick her brain about Philippines and all that good stuff, any other places that she's been and touched down on. She's a wealth of travel information, so that's good. And then, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time of day it is. I need you back into your seats. We are approaching our home airport. Buckle up, trays up, and the seats in an upright position. And before we land, Tamara, if you can do us a huge favor, if you can give us one last piece of travel advice, what would that be?
Go.
I like that. I like that.
Go, just go.
Go. Don't all that thinking, all that contemplating, all that waiting for your friends who probably ain't gonna end up going with you. You just go. So I like that.
Go.
Great piece of advice. Make sure y'all listening up. So to all my ladies and gentlemen out there, all my travelers, we have landed. Thank you for flying with us at the Global Travel Podcast. You may now unbuckle your seatbelts, grab your belongings, and exit the cabin. So with that being said, you guys, enjoy your trip and see you on our next trip. If you would like to be a guest on our show and tell us about your travel experiences, then leave us a comment in the comment section below so we can reach out to you. Also, if you have any countries, states, or cities that you'd like us to review, please let us know so we can plan a trip there. Lastly, if you got some good value today and liked our podcast, please hit the like button and click subscribe so you can travel with us again next time. So subscribe right now because you don't want to miss the next trip. With that being said, over and out.